Okay, welcome back. This is the fourth video in our series on Bava Kama, the first parak. We are on Bays on the Bays, and we're going to get started. We are on let's see here, we are on the fourth line. Now we're going to move away from the question for momentarily for whether or not avos and todos are similar to each other. And what we're going to do is we're going to move to the question of what are the avos, and where do we learn the avos from? That's going to be our next question. Okay, the Gemara says as follows: Tanar Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Gimel avos and Nemru Bashur. There are three primary avos that are taught when it comes to an ox damaging a person or other objects or fields or whatnot. Okay, three primary damages. Hakeren, an ox damaging with its horns. Hashain, an ox damaging with its mouth. Shain is literally teeth, so an ox damaging with its mouth. And haregel, a ox damaging with its feet. Okay, now the Gemara is going to go along and ask, where do we know that these are the avos? Right? How do we decide when something's an av and when something's a tolda? How do we know that these are the avos under shore? The Gemara says, Keren minolan. Minolan, another one of those key Gemara words. Where do we know it from? Okay, what's the source? Keren minolan. The Tanar Rabbanan, right? We learned in a brisa. Now, a brisa is a series of collections of writings that are quoted in the Gemara, written at the same time around as the Mishnah, but there's you can't walk into a bookstore and say, I'd like a copy of the brisos. Brisos are only collected inside the Gemara. So the Gemara is going to quote a brisa. Tanar Rabbanan, rabbis taught in a brisa. Ein negicha ela b'keren. The word negicha, which we're going to see, is going to appear in a pasuk, only means damaging by way of horns. Okay? And the pasuk says, right, kiyigach, right? The pasuk says kiyigach. Let's remember that. Put that down on paper somewhere. That's going to be an important pasuk for us to know over the next couple of pages. Kiyigach means, right, when the ox gores. Okay? So kiyigach. Now, ein negicha, right? We know that there's no such thing as an ox goring, ein negicha, ela b'keren, other than when it's with its horns. Okay. So, V'yasl shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'yasl tzidkiya ben kanana karne barzel, V'yomer komar Hashem be'ela tinagechas aram. Okay, what does the pasuk say? This is a pasuk that we're quoting from Navi. That's going to be important. The pasuk says, Tzidkiya ben kanana. So he was a false prophet, and this false prophet made horns out of metal or whatnot. He made horns out of iron, and he said, Hashem says, with these horns, you're going to gore your enemy. What do we see from the pasuk? Right? We see from the pasuk that the horns and goring, right, negicha and horns go together. That's one pasuk that proves to us that keren, that damaging with horns, is an av. But the Gemara quotes another pasuk, ve'omer, and it also says, okay, what does the second pasuk say? B'chor shoro hadar lo, v'karnerim karnav, behema mimi ganach. Okay, so what does it mean? A king is his ox like one, majesty conferred upon him, and his horns are the horns of Re'im. With them he shall gore nations. Okay, so then again we see the pasuk has the word keren, has horns, right? And also has yinagach, has the word of nagicha, of goring. Again, the two together teaches us that what? Teaches us that whenever we have a pasuk that talks about goring, it means with horns, and therefore we establish that keren is one of the avos. Okay, now that we know that, we have a question. When I want to prove something, I only need one pasuk to prove it. I never need two. Yet here we're presented with a pasuk from Navi, right? The Tzidkiya ben Kanana pasuk of him making horns out of iron, and we have the pasuk from Devarim of B'chor Sharo Hadar Lo, V'karnerim Karnav, the second pasuk that we have from Devarim. So the Gemara is going to ask, why do I need two psukim? One pasuk is generally enough. So what does the Gemara say? My v'omer, right? What does it mean? And it says, right? In other words, the v'omer, if you look back in our Gemara, it says v'omer, just a line before, it says v'omer. We have a second pasuk. Why do I need the second pasuk? One, the pasuk of Tzidkiya ben Kanana, should be enough. So the Gemara says, v'chitema. We're going to use the second pasuk because maybe you'll come and argue as follows. Divrei Torah mi divrei Kabbalan lo yofinon. right? Divrei Torah, words from the Torah, we don't derive from Divrei Kabbalah. Divrei Kabbalah doesn't mean the hoo stuff. Divrei Kabbalah means Navi. We don't learn Torah laws. Here, what law are we trying to teach? We're trying to teach the Torah law of an ox goring. That we can't prove with psukim from Navi. If a Kadosh Baruch Hu meant to say this was halacha, he wouldn't wait till Navi to tell us. It would be in the words of the Torah itself. And therefore, what do we say? We say that we derive Torah laws, right? We don't derive Torah laws from the words of the prophet. And Tashma, therefore, come and learn. Tashma, another key Gemara phrase. Tashma, come and learn. That what? B'chor sharo hadar lo. Learn this second pasuk from the Torah. Once we have a second pasuk from the Torah, what does that second pasuk from the Torah teach us? It teaches us that even though our first pasuk is from the Navi, we still have a pasuk from the Torah that proves that Karen is in Av. Okay. The Gemara doesn't like that explanation. The Gemara says, "V'ha milafu." Wait a minute, hold on a second. Who's learning a law here? We're not learning laws. What are we trying to do? We're trying to prove that Karen is an Av. But we're not trying at all to prove a law. So the Gemara says, "V'ha milafu." Are we really learning a law here? Are we deriving a law? No. What are we doing? Gilui milsa ba'almahu. Right? All we're doing is trying to reveal, literally reveal something, meaning revealing what? Revealing the definition of a word. Right? All we're trying to prove is that negicha, whenever we see the word negicha, meaning goring, that's done with Karen. That's all we're doing. So we'll take sources from anywhere. Torah, Navi, doesn't make a difference where we're going to see them from, as long as we know that whenever we see the word negicha, it means goring, and that occurs with horns, then we know that we're fine. That's the idea. So now we're still left with our question, right? Why does the Gemara need two psukim to prove that Karen is an Av? So Ella Mahu Detema. If we only had the pasuk from Navi, what might I have thought? Ki Palig Rachmana Bein Tam Lemuad. When the Torah makes a distinction between an ox that's tam, meaning one that doesn't ordinarily gore, and one that's muad, that does gore more than 3 times and is habitual to gore, when the Torah makes a differentiation, what's the differentiation the Torah makes? The punishment for a muad is that it has to pay full damages. A tam doesn't have to pay full damages. So when it makes that distinction, you might think from the pasuk in Navi, that's only if the ox picks up a detached horn. Imagine the case. Picks up a detached horn, puts it in its mouth, and stabs somebody with it, or destroys property with it, because that's what happened in Navi. It was a detached horn. But when it's attached, not the case in Navi, so then what am I to think? That everything is muad. Right? I might come to a mistaken conclusion that anything that's not a detached horn is muad, because I might think the only case that the Navi is talking about is a case of a detached horn. So not detached horns, there's no differentiation. Says the Gemara, no, that's mistaken. Okay, that's not right. Right? Ema kula muedesi. I might think that tashma. Therefore, we come and learn b'chor sharo hadar lo. We learn a second pasuk. Why do we need this second pasuk? To tell me that even when the horns are attached, even in that case when the horns are attached, then I'm obligated that I can still differentiate, between tam lemuad, between an ox that's calm and that's not habitual to damage, and an ox that is habitual to damage. So, what was our issue? Our issue was, why did we have 2 psukim? We sum up and say we had 2 different psukim, one from Navi and one from the Torah, because the Navi pasuk, although it does define the Gicha as Karen and acts as a proof to that point, might have mistakenly led us on a conclusion that it could have been that I might have thought that the only time we talk about goring and separating between a tam and a muad is when the horns are detached. But when they're not detached, then I would have no place to make that distinction. In order that we don't think that way, we have another pasuk from the Torah. We'll go on in our next video in the Gemara with Tolda de Karen Mahi. What are the Toldos of Karen?